Let's turn our attention back to the migration story, and particularly Gary Lineker on the front page of a number of papers today after his frankly absurd comments about saying, good heavens, this is beyond awful about the illegal migration bill. This is just an immeasurably cruel policy directed at the most vulnerable people in language that is not dissimilar to that used by Germany in the 30s. He said there's no huge influx. We take far fewer refugees than any other major European countries. Well, let's talk to Conservative MP Jonathan Gullis about this. Good morning to you, Jonathan.
Hey, Julia, how are you doing?
Very well indeed, I have to say. I mean, Gary Lineker, I mean, of course he's come out. He's got, look, he's got to go and get his coffee at his local, latte coffee shop. He's got to go and have dinner parties with the right people. His little Ramona buddies preaching his views. He's entitled to give his opinion, is he not?
He is entitled to give his opinion to a certain extent, but when you're being paid by the state broadcaster over £1 million a year, and the idea to be politically neutral, which is sewn into his contract, then he has to understand that he has to abide by those rules. I can only suspect that he's getting very jealous that the other Gary Neville, who's obviously getting the love-in with Sir Keir Starmer, Mr. Flip-Flop, as I like to call him, is getting such a bromance that he's fearing he's missing out. And he's desperately trying to clamour to also get to share a stage and watch Keir Starmer pour water all over himself with excitement as well.
there is that, isn't there? The thing is, this isn't a free speech issue. I would march in the streets for Gary Lineker to give his ill-informed opinions on any subject whatsoever. I never feel the need to agree with someone to say, I will defend your right to say things. The trouble is, this isn't a freedom of speech issue, it's a BBC contractual issue. He is contracted as a freelance, yes, but as a contractor, and not about politics, but about football, to the BBC, for which he is paid £1.35 million a year. Now, we are, sadly, contracted to pay the BBC licence fee. If we don't pay it, we can be fined. If we don't pay that fine, we can be jailed for not paying it. We are paying his wages. And part of the deal of that, this is a national broadcaster, and they are supposed to be politically neutral. And the representatives of the BBC, particularly high-profile ones, are supposed to be politically neutral. And that doesn't just mean the Laura Kunsbergs and the Nick Robinsons, does it? It should include everybody. He's been told by Tim Davie, the Director General of the BBC, to zip it repeatedly, to tone down his comments. He's ignoring it. Should he remain in his job?
I personally think he's just going to keep pushing the boundary time and time again until someone actually does something, whether that be a massive whopping fine or at least giving, his salary, or, like you say, actually having to get rid of him, because I'm sick to the back teeth of being virtue signalled by someone who lives their multi-million-pound lifestyle, who's got the Lineker's bars all across the world. And let's not forget, Julia, if Lineker's bars were hotels and all the staff there were sacked and they were trying to make a quick buck, I wonder how he would be reacting to that situation. The problem is he is the BBC's big old whining baby who, likes to make sure that he gets his views in every now and again because he thinks he's relevant. He thinks, people care what he's got to say. The only thing they care about is what his views are about whether or not Eric Haaland is the greatest striker in the world right now, or is it Kylian Mbappe. That's the only thing we want to hear from Gary Lineker. We don't want to hear his views on politics. He was out of touch with the overwhelming majority of this country when it came to Brexit, and he saw that result in 2019 in the general election. And he's totally out of touch with the people I represent, the Stoke-on-Trent North Kids Go and Talk, who are delighted, Julia, with this fantastic piece of legislation that's been brought forward by Suella Braverman and the Prime Minister to stop the small boats, one of the 5 pledges made by the Prime Minister, because we need to deliver on that promise. Because if we don't deliver on it, this country is going to be very angry at the situation when the hospitality sector is damaged, tourism industry is undermined, and obviously public services are strained further.
Yeah. But this is the key thing. He is basically saying that, those of us who support these measures and want the boat stopped, that we're kind of supporting Nazi policies. That's effectively what he's saying. And yet those policies have massive support, not just among Tory voters, but a huge, large minority, very large minority, among Labour voters. And that's just the ones who admit to it. I don't know anyone who thinks it's a good idea to have these 45,000 people who crossed last year and have 160,000 on the waiting list to have their asylum applications processed. This is an insult to the British people, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And look, if Gary wants to be serious, why doesn't he come around door knocking with me in Stoke-on-Trent North Kids Go and Talk?
I would love that.
Well, Julia, and let's bring your sound husband, a proud Stokey as well, Julia, because he knows what he's on about. Let's make sure.
Every time.
Never miss an opportunity, Julia. Never miss an opportunity.
Jonathan, I would pay such good money to watch that. It would be hilarious. Jonathan Gullis, great for you to join us. Thank you very much, MP for Stoke North, in case you didn't gather that.